any further details. Action SA has submitted a Promotion of Access to Information Act request for the IPID report into Palapala Farm Saga. National Chairperson for the party, Michael Beaumont, says the application was submitted last week to obtain the Police Investigative Directorate's report on the theft that took place at President Cyril Ramaphosa's farm. The robbery, which took place in February 2020, saw approximately $580,000 stolen from the farm. Beaumont says Action SA is initiating this step with the aim to contest this matter in the High Court if necessary.
This comes after the Minister of Police, Senzo Mqunu, described the report as top secret and informed the public that the report would not be made public. Section 3.4.4 of the Minimum Information Security Standards Cabinet Policy is explicit that top secret classifications can only be applied to reports when they result in issues like declaration of war or the discontinuation of diplomatic relations between states. It must be stressed that a cabinet policy is inferior to higher legislation like the Promotion of Access to Information Act and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa.
South Africa says the people of Gaza are under a complete siege from Israel. This morning, the International Court of Justice is hearing submissions from different countries. ICJ has opened the hearings to gauge Israel's responsibility for the humanitarian crisis engulfing Gaza during its war against Hamas. The hearings, which began on Monday in The Hague, will run throughout the week. This follows a request last year from the United Nations General Assembly asking the court to assess Israel's responsibility to ensure the provision of essential supplies to Gaza. International Relations Director General Zain Dango says Israel has blatantly ignored its obligations as stipulated by international law.
Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz said on 16 April 2025, and I quote, "Israel's policy is clear. No humanitarian aid is about to enter Gaza. There are no preparations to enable such aid." Under the world's watchful eye, Palestinians across the occupied Palestinian territories are being subjected to atrocity crimes, persecution, apartheid, and genocide.
Light rain has started to fall in parts affected by the ongoing wildfire in the Upper Tokai in the Table Mountain National Park. The City of Cape Town's Fire and Rescue spokesperson Jermaine Carlse says the hope that the rain will bring much needed relief and help speed up firefighting efforts. He says helicopters have been grounded again due to poor visibility, and the incident management team will assess the situation to determine the way forward. Carlse says crews from various agencies remain on scene, but resources may be scaled back once an assessment is completed. Nearly 3 million travellers entered and exited South Africa in March. According to Stats SA's data, 75% were foreign travellers. Arrivals of foreign travellers increased by 8%. Their departures increased by 14.5%, and transits increased by 20.4% compared to February. Nothando Magudulela reports.
Stats SA says the holiday continues to be the main reason of visits to the country. Other reasons include business, studies, and medical treatment. According to Stats SA data, the majority of tourists were from Southern African Development Community countries, and travel by road was the most commonly used mode of transport. Stats SA says the number of overseas tourists who come to South Africa is generally the highest in the first and fourth quarters of the year.
An Australian woman has gone on trial accused of murdering 3 members of her estranged husband's family by serving them poisonous mushrooms. Erin Patterson has pleaded not guilty. The high-profile case has gripped Australia and brought international media's attention on the town of Victoria, where the deaths happened. The BBC's Celia Hatton has the details.
In a case that's shocked Australia, Erin Patterson says she didn't intend to kill her parents-in-law and another family member with a poisoned mushroom beef Wellington dish. She'd foraged for the fungi and told police she didn't know she'd picked lethal death cap mushrooms. But investigators say they now believe she'd already tried to poison her estranged husband 3 times. He'd been invited to the lunch too, but declined.
Recapping the top story, police have confirmed that 3 bodies have been pulled out of the Hanops River. It is unclear if it is the missing police officers. The police have confirmed that search and rescue operations are currently underway. I am Mondela Mbana for SAFM News Headlines at 1:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
The wait is over. I've been hustling, grinding, and now it's time for the glow up you've been waiting for. Unapologetically, made the bay. From the grind to the glam. Anelezondo the glow up on Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
What matters is still coming up. It's a massive football rivalry. It is one of the biggest football derbies in the world. Amakosi clashes with the Buccaneers at the Calabash. This is the Betway Premiership. Experience the Soweto Derby, Kaizer Chiefs versus Orlando Pirates on Saturday, 3 May at 2 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1. Then on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You are listening to The Full Circle.
Inhliziyo yami Azvusinova and Nguwe. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Full Circle, and standing in for Bridget Masinga. Let's take a look at what's coming up in the show. Exciting health stuff. Deep Skin is our first conversation this afternoon with Dr. Judy. So we know that the biggest organ of the body is the skin. That's a fact, something you can just bag in case you go for some quiz somewhere and they ask you the biggest organ of the body. What is it? You will know it is the skin. Also coming up, we'll be going to stages, pages, screens and more. Food and art, South African Studio H exploring corn as a cultural connector during Milan Design Week 2025 with what they call a mindful food installation, maize, Milan, and a moment of connection. We'll be speaking to food designer and founder of Studio H. That will be on the other side around about 1:30. Also coming up, we have health and wellness, malaria, remaining the end of malaria amid a funding crisis. Oh yes, when President Trump, we always have this tendency to just call him Trump because it's a little bit of a maverick. I think that's why we just call him with his first name. But anyway, when he pulled funding, a lot of countries went into mayhem, into chaos. But we get to find out a little bit more, but from a health perspective, as to what it means for us here in South Africa. And we'll be speaking to project manager, coordinator to the University of Pretoria Institute for Sustainable Malaria Control, that is Dr. Tanishka Kruger. Also, later on the other side of the second hour, the impact of vaping to teenagers' mental health. This you have to pay attention to, because I found out grade 8s, 9, 10s, they vape. What business do they have vaping at that age? But we'll be speaking to Dr. Wisani Makomisane, psychiatrist and member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists, on the show. But kicking off with our first conversation, Skin Dip, when we come back.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg. SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
And my first guest, Dr. Judy, who's done quite extensive work in pharmaceutical, medical device developments, has constructed various accredited laboratories in South Africa and in Mauritius to design, develop and manufacture products for the pharmaceutical and medical device industry. Is an academic at heart, and I can attest, just looking at her skin, it absolutely looks awesome. But Dr. Judy, welcome to the show. That's Dr. Judy Pretorius. I was about to leave out your surname there for a second, but welcome to the show.
Afternoon to all the listeners, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for making time and coming into the studio. So you are a doctor, biomedical scientist, product development specialist. What does it take? What does it entail?
Okay, so you can hear I'm an academic person, and I'm actually also a professional student, if that makes sense. But typically from an academic point of view, I have a big background in biochemistry and a PhD in pharmaceutical chemistry, some postdoctoral education as well, and even now busy with a advanced diploma in dermatology. So anything skin, and even in our lab we culture skin for research and development purposes, and we culture different skin tones and types to see how ingredients, in the cosmeceutical industry or the pharma industry or medical device industry responds to human skin. And based on that, we can really come with scientific information. What can you do and should you not do to create a therapeutic response on your skin?
So we often hear that, the skin is the body's largest organ. And now we want to learn more about our skin health and how to ensure best care practices and, the development. You're a specialist in this regard. Just looking after our skin, we take it for granted,
Absolutely. The first thing that I like to say is rightfully, as you mentioned, the human skin is the largest organ, but it's also the most dynamic organ. If people get out their ID cards or their passport books right now and they have a look at their picture, they look at 80% of their skin, is in that picture. So our skin is there to protect us, but we are also identified by our skin. And think about this for a second. The human skin doesn't lie because it's the only organ that is used during a lie detection test, a polygraph test. And it's such a dynamic organ that it was also the only organ that was used during COVID to detect if you have a fever amongst the crowd. So human skin has a tendency to be very talkative. And wouldn't it be great if you can actually have an interview today with a human skin? Imagine this for a moment. The human skin had an audible voice, and you can have any type of questions that you can ask the human skin. And think about some questions. Why are you so dry? Why am I experiencing intermittent breakouts? Why am I struggling with pigmentation? Why am I sagging? There are so many things that the human skin presents to us, but we really don't know the answers to. And I think that's why I'm here, is to explain the do's and don'ts of the human skin and also give a nice scientific and understandable background of why certain things happen to the human skin.
I like the fact that you highlighted that the skin is the reflection of what is taking place internally, externally, whichever way. Maybe you can take us through the elements that make up our skin and the best practice in caring for the skin.
Well, a nice way to explain it, if you take your child to a pediatrician, the first thing a pediatrician will do is, look in the ears and examine the eyes and examine the throat, and right at the end examine the skin to see, is there some rash, is there some form of an expression on the skin, and based on what they see, they can determine, is the child perhaps sensitive to certain ingredients like baby formula, or even breast milk, or fabric from clothing or washing powder, whatever the case may be. So the human skin likes to talk, and certain diseases, systemic inflammation would definitely express on the human skin. It's also important to know that the human skin weighs anything between 7 to 10 kilos of your total body mass. And the elements of human skin is, if you and I touch our skin right now, we're touching the outer layer of the skin known as the epidermis. But if you go slightly deeper into the skin, the middle layer, it's called the dermis. And inside the middle layer, in my opinion, is the most important layer. And I'll tell you why. Because you have skin cells there called fibroblasts. And I know it's big words, but these fibroblast skin cells produce collagen and elastin fibers. And try to imagine this. Try to imagine a sponge that's nice and fluffy and keeps everything upright. And if you lose this sponginess, this elasticity, if you will, from the skin, then the overall weight of the skin just remains. So the collagen and elastin fibers that are found in the middle layer of the skin disappears as you and I grow older. We lose it about 1% per year. Now it disappears, and now just the weight of the skin remains. And this is where the term sagging comes from,
I don't want to laugh, but I have to when you said 1% a year. So if you're 65, you've lost 65% of your elasticity.
I'm telling you, and also people don't know where enlarged pores comes from. They struggle with enlarged pores, and basically that's where it comes from. It's the loss of collagen and elastin fibers in the middle layer of the skin. And unfortunately, we do not do enough to take care of the middle layer of the skin, which I feel it's the part that you cannot see with the naked eye, but it's the part that we need to spend a little bit more effort and attention to, so that we can stimulate new collagen and elastin fiber synthesis, and also to prevent this typical turkey neck waddle, and the sunspots and aging type of mechanisms or appearance that takes place as we age, unfortunately.
And what are some of the common conditions that you've come across in your work?
Okay, so some of the common conditions are definitely acne, and many people struggle with pigmentation. Now, if I say many people, nearly every single South African struggles with pigmentation. But then we take it a step further and we say, okay, but females have kind of a unique pigmentation called melasma. Now, melasma typically starts to express when a female is pregnant with a child. She experiences this type of melasma, like we call it pregnancy mask, and she even gets this brown line on her tummy called the linea nigra line. So pigmentation is a huge problem. Aging is also very important. I mean, we've seen that ad on TV that says the person who's going to live to the age of 200 has already been born. So what if that is you and me? What are we going to look like when we are 160 years old? It's not uncommon for people to live longer now. It doesn't make front page news anymore. We live longer. So it also means that we have to put in more effort and do more things to protect the human skin. Then there are other concerns like stretch marks and cellulite, of course, and scars, old scars and wound healing. So everything that pertains to the human skin, that's going to be my job to explain. Even alopecia, hair loss, hair thinning, pigmentation and acne on the body, literally the whole epidermis of the human skin, whether it's the scalp or even the skin underneath your feet. These are things that I'm happy to provide substantial explanations for in this show.
I always like to interact because I'm sure our listeners are thinking, Bertha, open up the lines, would also like to ask questions. I suppose we can squeeze in maybe one or two. You can always use our line, which is 086 000 2032, or you can use our WhatsApp line where you can drop us your voice note on 061 410 4107. And I'm speaking to Dr. Judy Pretorius, biomedical scientist and product development specialist, and we're talking about the skin. Now, let's come to the skin types. What types exist? Is there a specific number?
Yes, absolutely. We call it the Fitzpatrick scale. So what that means is there are 6 different skin tones and types, and we refer to Fitzpatrick 1 right through to Fitzpatrick 6. Now, Fitzpatrick 1 means it's a very fair type of skin, and it's how we burn in the sun. So Fitzpatrick 1 is a Scandinavian type of undertone, and to some extent even albinism. So they burn a lot in the sun, and they need to protect their skin so much more when it comes to certain UV rays and sun rays specifically, to prevent them getting things like skin cancer. Fitzpatrick 2, 3, 4, up to 6 is how do you burn in the sun? Do you burn red immediately and then later get a tan, or do you just get a tanned appearance from the get-go, which means that your Fitzpatrick skin type is usually more a darker skin undertone. But I can add to that, and I'd like to give an explanation, is that the human skin is as unique as your signature, is as unique as your fingerprint. And to explain it better is I was pregnant with twin girls, same mommy, same daddy. It's my DNA embedded in their skin cells, and it's my blood that flows through their veins. But yet, when I gave birth to my children, I gave birth to a Fitzpatrick 1 skin type and a Fitzpatrick 3 skin type. Twin girls. They ate what I ate, they drank what I drank, but yet in my own house I have to treat their skin tones and types differently. So if the one child gets bitten by a mosquito versus the other child, it takes my Fitzpatrick 1 skin child usually up to 2 or 3 weeks to heal from mosquito bites, where in comparison to the Fitzpatrick 3 child, it takes just a few days. So it just goes to show the sensitivity of the human skin, the uniqueness of human skin should be taken into consideration. That's why there's not really a one-size-fits-all when it comes to skin diseases and skin tones and types and how your skin responds to the environment or certain products. It's very unique, and we have to provide guidance and information to help people make the right decisions when it comes to protecting their skin.
Now, talking about food, the diet that we have or that we eat, skin food diet, Should it be the same? Should we really focus on specific foods to make sure that our skin look really fantastic? Because we often hear that, no, drink lots of water, your 8 glasses of water, and try and eat foods that are, I don't know, different foods that are just good for the skin with nutrition that is good for the skin.
Absolutely. That saying you are what you eat is important, but I'd like to, expand a little bit on it by saying, have a look at the environmental extremities. So let's talk about skin enemies, shall we? Skin enemies is number one, the sun. Although we in South Africa love the sun, we have wonderful weather, we want to be outdoors so much. We should make sure that we always do things to protect the human skin against our sun, because we are exposed to something called UVB rays, which means the sun's rays is nothing other than a very, very bad irritant that irritates the human skin so much that it can cause a lot of harm. So number one, the first type of harm that you're going to see is faster premature aging and sunspots and pigmentation, but it can also lead to cancer. Another thing that one needs to consider is also pollution. Back in the day, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, we didn't really have as much pollution as what we do now. There are things in the environment like sulfates, nitrates, phosphates, everything that we are exposed to every moment of every single day that really makes the skin quite, sensitive and vulnerable. And then we also have components like what you've said earlier on, the teenagers who vape. Smoking and vaping is very bad for the skin. And then we get to the food by saying sugar, and anything that causes inflammation can cause a lot of harm.
I am so engrossed. I even forgot about news headlines. I do beg your pardon. Let's just go to news headlines and we'll be back and we'll continue with Dr. Judy Pretorius.
Thank you, Bertha. On the news headlines on SAFM, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. 3 bodies have been retrieved from the Hianops River in Centurion, and a 4th body has just been found in the same area. However, identification process is still ongoing. Deputy President Paul Mashatile says the South Africa's G20 presidency seeks to advance development in Africa, and the authorities in Indian-administered Kashmir have closed 48 tourist destinations to the public in a bid to tighten security after last week's attack on holiday makers. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
In an apartment far, far away.
Mara Springs is not that far, Moss.
Who's the narrator here?
Sorry.
Exists a room dedicated to who Morena refers to as the GOAT. From his very first soccer boots, right down to the shirt that he wore in his final World Cup, Morena has it all. Ask Morena anything about the GOAT, and the answer will roll off his tongue like second nature. Morena is not just obsessed. Morena is the GOAT's super fan.
Uswile boy, it's me, super fan.
Yeah, sure, boy. Tune in to Superfan Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. on S3 and watch contestants compete in challenges related to their favorite artist, ultimately lip-syncing to determine the ultimate superfan. S3.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
It is the Full Circle, and I'm speaking to Dr. Judy Pretorius, biomedical scientist and product development specialist. We're talking about the largest organ of the body, which is the skin. And it all differs, Doc. When you are in your 20s, it's so easy to work your skin. Your 30s, your 40s. Then, mid-40s, actually, things start happening. 50s, 60s, I don't even want to tap into that category. But we also get TikTokers who give us advice.
Yes, absolutely. And if I can just take it a step further, the TikTokers, the social media influencers that give advice, some of them really don't have sufficient academic background. Some of them are still actually in school and they give you skincare advice. And it can get a little bit frustrating for those, especially for myself, if I have so many years of academic background and I do research and development it's my 8 to 5 basically. that there's so much more to the human skin than just one or two ingredients that's going to be this miraculous compound or molecule out there that's going to solve all sorts of problems, from acne to scarring and everything in between. So the human skin is, like I've indicated, very dynamic. It's a very dynamic organ, and there are certain rules that we need to follow. Like, for instance, the human skin is also known as an acid mantle, and it wants to be exposed to skincare ingredients and products that are more acidic, typically from a pH 5 to 5.5. The human skin doesn't like any fragrances, dyes, or colorants. So we shouldn't spend any money on products that contain some of these fragrances, dyes, and colorants, or even wrong preservative systems. It causes inflammation. And here's the thing: if people want the secret to age gracefully, stay away from anything and everything that causes inflammation, because inflammation causes premature aging, and then the signs of aging become so much more visible, and that includes sagging skin, pigmentation, redness, and deep lines and profound wrinkles that become so much more visible on the human skin. So try to have an affinity toward, leaning to individuals that provide you expertise type of answers. To really see a biological and therapeutic response on the human skin calls for experts, not necessarily that TikTok influencer.
Yeah, absolutely correct. But also sometimes we are inundated, like you've just, highlighted. We are so inundated. I remember during COVID when people were looking for multivitamins to take in, and we encourage, you need to have your vitamin D. And the best way to get your vitamin D is sit in the sun. But at the same time, you do have issues with the sun.
Absolutely. And you'll be surprised. You will not realize how many people in South Africa struggle with vitamin D deficiency. Even though we have the most wonderful sun, they really do struggle with vitamin D deficiency, and it has other ripple effect. It has an effect on fertility, for instance, but it also has an overall effect on immunity. So many people out there are struggling today with sensitivity, and if I say sensitivity, sensitive to certain ingredients and compounds, to stimulants and irritants, like, for instance, latex gloves, washing powder, pollen, or whatever the case may be, that causes a type of a contact dermatitis and so forth. And if you really delve a little bit deeper, you'll see that these individuals have a vitamin D deficiency. So yes, taking in all sorts of vitamins and minerals are very important, but don't underestimate that we need to supplement with a good vitamin D to make sure we boost our overall skin immunity and not only our systemic immunity.
I know this is just the first part of the first segment of what will be taking place. I think we'll be having more conversations, because I'm so inundated with so many questions. Like the one that I'm looking at right now says, "Hi Bertha, can castor oil and coconut oil?" Let me just see. I think can you use castor oil? Does it have an effect? And coconut oil?
Absolutely. But remember, if there was only one or two ingredients in the world that make such a big difference, then I wouldn't have a job today. So my job is supposed to be complex. So castor oil and coconut oil is what I call baseline ingredients. It's the baseline, it's the carrier ingredients that I use to deliver active ingredients to the skin. So it occludes the skin and it makes the skin feel moisturized. But it's not active ingredients, people. We need to look at active ingredients like vitamin A, which is known as retinol, which is very impactful for anti-aging, niacinamide, which is a vitamin B3, panthenol, vitamin B5, vitamin E, of course, hyaluronic acid that stimulates new collagen and elastin fibers in the skin. I mean, vitamin C. There are so many things that we need to use in conjunction with coconut oil, castor oil, shea butter, glycerine. The list just goes on and on.
So maybe in a nutshell, just before I let you go, a routine one should always keep for their skin to look good. And what to take in so that we look after that second layer of the skin that you emphasize that it's so important?
You know, my skincare tip for the day is if I could beg all the listeners today, I would start by having a twice a day skincare routine. Clean your face in the morning and in the evening. Apply good serum and a moisturizer in the morning and in the evening. And definitely start bringing in something systemically. Yes, uptake your daily vitamins and minerals. Vitamin D should definitely be part of that list. And also the popular collagen drinks these days, because if you take something like that in systemically, not only is it good for your bone and your cartilage, but it's good for your skin and your nail strength and even hair thickening and hair growth as well. So twice a day skincare routine and a collagen and vitamin and mineral drink every day will make a remarkable difference.
Your skin is looking gorgeous. It looks looking really beautiful. Let me just quickly take a voice note.
Afternoon, beautiful show. I want to just ask Doc there about the vitamins, the sun. Most of it's not like people they say vitamin D. People most of the time talk about morning sun and evening sun, not like the sun that people sitting on the beach that's got the vitamin D. Can Doc elaborate on that? Anonymous from Cape Town.
Okay, so there's something called a UV index, and the UV index differs, throughout the course of the day. There are certain periods and times that when the UV index is quite high, we will get a little bit more vitamin D. The issue is just as I mentioned early on, we have to fight the battle with pollution. And it also depends where you live in South Africa. There are certain areas in South Africa that's more polluted than others, and unfortunately, if you live in Gauteng, that's a highly polluted province for you. So we have to bring in extra supplements to take care of ourselves more. If we talk about food, for instance, food are genetically manipulated these days. You can buy certain vegetables and fruits today, and in 2 weeks' time, you open your fridge and it still looks like you just purchased it, yesterday. So we need to do more for our skin, even if it means taking in more supplements, but like going for IV treatment, like an injectable IV, and that bag contains vitamins and minerals, magnesium, sulfates, seleniums, etc., and even vitamin D. These are the things that we have to do to protect ourselves, in terms of boosting our immunity and health and keeping our skin healthy. Because as we mentioned earlier on before, the human skin is there to protect ourselves, and it protects other organs. So the more healthier and stronger you keep your skin, the more healthier you are going to be systemically as well.
I think let me squeeze in. Is there one more voice note? It looks like I do have.
I wanted to ask about Inzumba. I don't know what Inzumba is in English, actually. Can you help and explain? But they are all over my body. The amazing thing is that they are not in my face, but I've seen it to some people. It is even in their faces. But on me, they are just black spots all over my body. I try to change my diet, the things that but these things, they just grow up. They are small, but they are there in the body.
So the little skin tags.
Okay, so we get skin tags or growths, and some of these skin tags can also sometimes happen because of something systemically. The first thing why people struggle with skin tags is, of course, obesity. The second reason would be that from a diabetic point of view, insulin deficiency can also be one of the reasons. But people don't necessarily know what to do because there are remedial actions. So you can go for professional treatments where a practitioner can actually just, freeze it off, or we call it cauterization techniques. So you just quickly burn some of these skin tags off. You get it in the neck area, get it under the arms or in the abdomen area. But also, as I understood this gentleman, he was referring to eczema as well. Mm-hmm. So he's indicating that he has some form of expression on his skin. We like to refer to it as contact dermatitis or atopic dermatitis, which means there's an irritant, a stimulant, or an allergen out there that's causing this expression. So you can get the expression from the outside, like pollen, for instance, latex gloves, and you can get it either by means of taking in certain foods like fish, shellfish and nuts, or even medication like penicillin or aspirin. So there are many allergens or irritants or stimulants out there that causes some form of an expression on the human skin, and it has a burning sensation, a stinging sensation, and a severe itching sensation, and even a little bit of swelling that takes place, and it's very uncomfortable. But to get to the root cause, we like to refer to the rule of elimination. Try to see what you exposed yourself to about 24 to 48 hours before. Was it something that you ate? Was it new washing powder perhaps that you started using? Did you get in contact with a cat or a dog that caused this type of a contact dermatitis? And start ruling that out. But I can categorically prove to you that individuals who struggle with eczema or this dermatitis, if you do lab tests on them, you will find that most of them have a vitamin D deficiency.
We'll have to leave it at this point. Dr. Judy Pretorius in the studio, biomedical scientist and product development specialist. Like I highlighted, so much to talk about, so much that happens with the skin, and you just have to wait for next week as the second edition, and the third edition will come. So I'm also looking forward to be listening to Bridget when she talks about the skin. Doc, thank you so much for coming through and making time.
Thank you for having me.
And have yourself a good one.
You too.
Bye for now.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The wait is over. I've been hustling, grinding, and now it's time for the glow up you've been waiting for. Unapologetically, made the bay. From the grind to the glam. Anelezondo the glow up on Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Gada on SAFM.
Has Ramaphosa said anything that for you stands out, keeping in mind the point you made? South Africa maybe doesn't need to punch above its weight, but certainly needs to punch at its weight, but to do that effectively.
Yeah. Russia is clearly trying to, drag South Africa closer into its orbit. There's also China, and that's once again we're talking about within this BRICS grouping. I think by meeting with Zelensky, Ramaphosa is sending a very strong message that the South Africa cannot be taken for granted. It is no one's, automatic ally or someone that you would expect to carry water for them. It will set its own foreign policy course. It will meet with whoever it wants, and I think that is to be commended.
Peter Zalmayev, the director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
And just as a reminder, just in case if you've sent us your other voice notes that we did not take through, or the questions, I'm sure the producers will keep them for Bridget when she comes back next week for the show. But otherwise, coming up next, stages, pages, screens, and more, food and art. And we're going to be speaking to our guest, food designer, founder of Studio H, that's Henry Visser. Good afternoon and welcome to the show.
so much for having me. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you for making time. And just to give our listeners a backdrop, so Studio H specializes in culinary-minded design, creating, immersive experiences that combine culinary innovation, art, storytelling, and the team excels in content production, trend focusing on recipe development, immersing the brand experiences and spaces. And I'm so looking forward to unpacking more. So, Henry, I know I've just given a little snippet. That's just like a drop in the ocean of what you do. If maybe you could elaborate on that.
So I just came back from Milan Design Week, where we worked with an American-based company to showcase food as a cultural connector at an event. We had to cook for 700 people, and they asked that we only use corn as an ingredient, which I think to a South African is a dream brief, because corn it's such a powerful ingredient, and it's an ingredient that we love so much, but it's also, there's a lot of issues around corn that's important to highlight. So we worked with this American-based company, and what they wanted to show at this event was that they wanted to show support for their neighbors in Canada and Mexico, and the best way to connect people is through food. So that's what we do. We tell stories and we connect people, and we want people to have a good time.
So this was a huge milestone for Studio H, your first installation at Milan Design Week. Maybe you can describe or maybe tell us the experience being the first time.
It was phenomenal. I've been wanting to go to Milan Design Week for ages, and I've just never been able to. So this is an absolute dream come true, and to be able to showcase our work next to international designers that we absolutely admire and that we look up to really was a dream come true.
Corn as a cultural connector. I mean, we're talking South Africa to Mexico to Canada and beyond. Why did they choose corn? I suppose it's a staple food, isn't it?
It's a staple, and it's something that people get very emotional about, because it's something that you grow up with, and I think everyone has a connection somehow with corn. It's something that most people have eaten. And also in the current political climate, I think it was important for them to show their support to Mexico. So corn comes. We think it's indigenous to South Africa and Africa, but it's actually indigenous to South America and Mexico. So I think that's what they wanted to. That's the message that they wanted to get across.
Now, as a studio, how do you use food as a communication and storytelling tool? What is the objective you hope to achieve?
I think for me, food is, if you look at design and art, it's quite intimidating. But food is something that we all do 3 times a day. It's the only design medium or artist medium that you put inside your body. So it's a very personal experience, but it's also very accessible, because it's something that everyone does, and it's something that everyone understands. So if you start telling stories through food, it makes it easier.
I'm just trying to picture here, Henry, how it all works. And you were talking about serving 700 guests earlier on.
Yes.
That must have been a challenge.
It was a challenge, but we planned it really, really well. And we started prepping in South Africa already, so we took some of the food with us. We had a chef in Milan that we worked with, and we tried to be clever with the menu. So one of the things we did was we made this 3-meter long cornbread, but it's instead of serving it as a sweet menu item, we turned it on its head and we made it a savory dish. So we filled it with cheese and cold meats and So it became a sandwich in a way. So it was layered with these cornbreads that we already baked in South Africa and froze, and we flew with that. And then we just assembled it. So we layered that with all kinds of ingredients, and we wanted to use ingredients from Italy because they were the host city. And then we also used some jalapenos and to represent Mexico, and we included some Canadian ingredients. So this huge long cake, sandwich that looked like a cake, managed to feed everyone, and then we had lots of other menu items around that as well.
And talking about, culinary art, you've been given a task, the ingredients and all that. When you presented, the meal that you presented, how was it received? Because you know how it is, our taste, or I don't know, our taste buds are very different. So someone can make a meal from South Africa and I'll enjoy it. Someone can make me a meal maybe from Mexico and I'll think, ooh, too hot for me.
I think it was, so what we do is we always try and add an element, a playful element to everything that we do. So for example, we try not to use traditional cutlery. So we use tools that you would traditionally find in a hardware store, for example. So for example, the cake, we gave people saws to cut it instead of knives. So it's just what we try and do is, so there's that nostalgic trigger because we, through the ingredients that we use, and then you kind of pull people in, and then you give them playful elements like a weird kind of tool, and then, you start talking to the person next to you and everybody's intrigued, and you kind of, you feel a little bit, it takes you back to your childhood. So we employ all these different triggers that gets people excited. And then, we also try and make the food delicious. And all of that in combination works really well.
And for instance, if someone is fascinated, fascinated with what we're talking about, food designing, culinary art, do you also have space where you train people that are interested?
So we do offer internships, and then I'm also involved, or I used to be involved in the incubator program at Makers Landing, which is a space in the V&A waterfront. So I still am involved as a mentor. So yeah, informally, I am involved in training people, and I'm also very happy for people just to contact me on social media and have a coffee with someone and just talk about this very niche industry that's quite small still in South Africa. So the more people that want to get into this industry or this business, the happier I am.
And if I want to experience Studio H, where do I go?
So we very rarely do events for public, but your timing is really good. We have a pop-up that's open to the public on 16 and 17 May in Cape Town that we're doing with Chef Mabato Molefe, and we are looking at doing something in Johannesburg during Design Week I think it's in October. So they will, because we always get asked when we're doing something in Joburg. And Joburg is one of my favorite cities. So we're definitely coming to Joburg, but for now we're doing something 16, 17 May in Cape Town, and people can just check it out either on our website or our Instagram.
That's Haneri Visser, food designer, founder of Studio H, chatting to us this afternoon. And thank you for making time.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye for now.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. Ashraf Gada on SAFM.
Further a call now for the finance minister to step down, wouldn't it cause even further turmoil? Is it not just rhetoric from your side? I mean, you don't really mean that, do you?
Look, I think that the Minister of Finance has no enthusiasm to currently implement the budget that he has been forced to implement. And that is shown by the fact that he's not interrogated any of the alternative revenue generation mechanisms and proposals by political parties and stakeholders and incorporated it as part of his media advisory at the very least. So he's instituted what is almost a consequence management process of saying, well, you guys don't want VAT increases, you're going to have expenditure cuts when it comes to critical frontline services such as health, education.
Sinawo Tamba.
You're listening to the National Pulse. You are listening to the Full Circle.
I like it, Temba in Rustenburg. You're making me laugh. So Temba says, afternoon, guys. Bertha, all this time I thought you were Bridget. You really, I didn't realize you both sound this. You guys sound the same. So I love the reaction or the response from my technical producer with a serious face. He says, no, I think you do sound like Bertha. I thought that was funny. But anyway, Olinda is on standby with the news. It is 2.
Thank you, Bertha. On the top stories at 4 bodies found in the Hanops River area, and authorities in Kashmir close 48 tourist destinations to the public. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana, and a very good day. 3 bodies have been retrieved from the Hanops River in Centurion. However, the identification process is still ongoing. A 4th body was found in the area in the bushes. There are 3 males and 1 female body. This as police are searching for 3 police officers who disappeared last Wednesday en route from Bloemfontein to their area of deployment in Limpopo. The trio were last known to be at a garage near the Kashmir Toll Plaza on the N1. Griselda Lewis reports.
We're told that the 2 were discovered yesterday, another one this morning, and a 4th body has now been discovered. I'm told that in those bushes, that is where General Shadrach Sabia says they were alerted by golfers, and golfers alerted them to the body of a white male. How all of this linked, if this is linked at all, we're not sure at this particular stage.
Fatalities involving pedestrians has accounted for 47% of road deaths across the country over the Easter weekend. This was announced by Transport Minister Barbara Creasy during a media briefing on the Easter road statistics in Pretoria. According to the minister, a total of 167 fatalities were recorded this year as compared to 307 recorded in 2024. That's a reduction of 45.6%. However, despite this reduction, Creasy has expressed concern over the high amount of pedestrian fatalities.
Where we remain very concerned is the issue of fatalities involving pedestrians. And fatalities involving pedestrians is now the single highest cause of road accident deaths. 47% or almost half of all fatalities are now pedestrians. And this shocking reality indicates that our message to pedestrians is not reaching home.
Deputy President Paul Mashatile says that South Africa's G20 presidency seeks to advance development in Africa. He was the keynote speaker at the Think 20 Africa High-Level Dialogue in Pretoria, where he addressed various issues relating to the state of the continent. Mashatile says this growth must be beneficial for everybody.
Africa can accelerate development through digitalization, artificial intelligence, and emerging technologies. The 4th industrial revolution must be inclusive, bridging gaps in education, healthcare, financial services, and governance.
Next week marks a year since the tragic George building collapse in the Western Cape, in which 34 people lost their lives, 28 others were left injured and some maimed for life. A year later, most survivors and the victims' families all echo the same thing. Their lives are in tatters and justice is slow. So far, 2 reports on the cause of the incident and who must be held accountable have come out. One report will not be released publicly now, as it might jeopardize police investigations. The other has pointed fingers at the contractor and several officials from the National Home Builders Registration Council. Some, like Ivaldo Makamo, lost limbs in the incident and will never be able to work again.
It's tough. I can't even take my children to school because I'm struggling and nothing is happening. I don't see any help coming my way.
Authorities in India administered Kashmir have closed 48 tourist destinations to the public in a bid to tighten security after last week's attack on holidaymakers. Gunmen shot dead 26 men at close range in the Apalagam area. The BBC's Envarasan Edrijan has the details.
Officials said the tourist locations which had been shut were in remote areas of Indian-administered Kashmir and include some of the new destinations opened in the past 10 years. Nestled in the Himalayas with snow-capped mountains and picturesque valleys, Kashmir has been emerging as India's tourism hotspot as violence there has waned in recent years. More than 3 million people visited the region last year. The latest attack has triggered tensions between India and Pakistan, which both claim Kashmir in full but administer it only in part.
Recapping the top story, 3 bodies have been retrieved from the Henops River in Centurion. However, the identification process is still ongoing. A 4th body was found in the area in the bushes. I am Mondelambara for SFM News headlines at 2:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. Hashtag your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
Marawai, why did you, Mr. Got It Together, fumble the bag, literally? Your laptop gone, and now your confidence also gone. Marawai, why not cover your home contents and valuables with Santam, the insurer with a range of cover options that suit your needs? To switch, call 0860 444 or SMS cover to 36101. Santam, this is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Has Ramaphosa said anything that for you stands out, keeping in mind the point you made? South Africa maybe doesn't need to punch above its weight, but certainly needs to punch at its weight, but to do that effectively.
Yeah. Russia is clearly trying to, drag South Africa closer into its orbit. There's also China, and that's once again we're talking about within this BRICS grouping. I think by meeting with Zelensky, Ramaphosa is sending a very strong message that South Africa cannot be taken for granted. It is no one's, automatic ally or someone that you would expect to carry water for them. It will set its own foreign policy course. It will meet with whoever it wants, and I think that is to be commended.
Peter Zalmayev, the director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. You are listening to The Full Circle.
If you ready now, come go with me.
Jonathan Butler featuring Ruby Turner. If you're ready, come go with me. It is the Full Circle, and the second hour of the show will be zoning into health and wellness, malaria, reimagining the end of malaria amid a funding crisis. But just to recap, if you missed the first hour of the show, we had quite a very gripping conversation with Dr. Judy, Pretoria's biomedical scientist and product development specialist, and we're talking skin deep, really tackling the skin, which is the biggest organ of the body. Also, we spoke to Hanari Visser, food designer and founder of Studio H, and for stages, pages, screens and more, food and art, South African Studio H exploring corn as a cultural connector during Milan Design Week 2025 with what they call a mindful food installation, maize, Milan, and a moment of connection. So coming up, this is a little bit more slightly different. We're talking health here. World Malaria Day, commemorated every year on the 25th of April, and is a global effort to raise awareness, drive action against one of humanity's oldest, deadliest diseases. And this year's theme, Malaria Ends With Us. Reinvest, reimagine, reignite, calls for renewed, strengthened partnerships and bold solutions to eradicate this preventable and treatable disease. And to join us in this conversation, I've got project manager and coordinator to the University of Pretoria Institute for Sustainable Malaria Control. That is Dr. Tanishka Kruger. Good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Bertha, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
This is quite an old disease that has been for years.
Yeah, it has indeed, for many years, hundreds and thousands of years.
Why is it we are struggling to find a solution for it?
Oh my goodness, Bertha. The problem with malaria, first and foremost, is it's a very complex disease. I mean, we have a mosquito which has a complex life cycle of its own. We've got this parasite, both of them highly adaptable, and there's constant challenges, environmental challenges coming in. These two organisms building resistance to the very tools we use to fight them. We've got so many challenges, changes in climate impacting on the way how the life cycle speeds up, where you find these organisms, etc. So there's so many various challenges that just make it so difficult to get rid of this disease.
And it really remains a major public health challenge. So looking at World Health Organization 2024, they released a report where they said there were more than 263 million cases of malaria worldwide. That was in 2023. 11 million more than in 2022. And an estimated 597,000 deaths were caused by the disease. Most of the burden remains in at the African region, with 94% of cases and 95% of deaths occurring there, particularly among children under the age of 5 in sub-Saharan Africa. What is it that we are not getting right on the African continent?
You know what? I think we are definitely getting so many things right. The challenge remains that Africa has the right temperature, the right climate, the right humidity, the right amount of rainfall that really just drives this disease. But something else that we all need to keep in mind, malaria is a disease of poverty. It unfortunately affects the poorest of the poor. It hits in the rural areas where we really struggle to get the right control and treatment to. There's challenges with regards to healthcare facilities, access to these people, access to the resources needed, etc. So it's just like this whole mixture of things that just really drive it more on the African continent.
So how do we detect, early detection, the signs and symptoms to look out for?
Okay, so the signs and symptoms, early detection specifically, it depends. It varies on presentation, but in most cases, you find that your symptoms are fever-like. And this is another one of the challenges why we struggle with this disease to get it under control or to get it eliminated, apologies for that, is the fact that it does appear, symptoms appear like the fever, the common fever, apologies again, the common and I forgot the word, flu. Sorry, there we go. Flu. The symptoms are very similar to the common flu. So we find that it's fever, chills, sweating, fatigue, muscle aches often also seen. And the problem is, like I said, people that present with malaria have these symptoms, but they might not know that they have the disease. They might think they have the flu because I wasn't in a malaria area, or they forgot that they were in a malaria area. And then they don't inform their doctor about it. So these are your early detection symptoms that are very important to pick up on, especially if a person was in a malaria area.
Have we made any progress by any chance?
With getting rid of the disease.
Yes.
Controlling the disease. Yes, there's been some major progress. As you stated, there was 263 million cases of malaria worldwide in 2023, which is 11 more than 2022. But before that, I would say in the early 2000s till about 2017, there was good progress. And this was due to innovations in treatment, prevention and surveillance, and more than 2 billion cases and nearly 13 million deaths have been prevented since 2000 because of this. So yes, there has definitely been us going forward, and the problem is now there's these new challenges that step in that impact on how we continue with this progress. So we're finding that progress has started stalling, and it's actually reversing in a way. And this is because of all these new challenges, all these issues, these gaps that are popping up that we need to address.
And since the withdrawal of aid, what are we already starting to see the effects of that withdrawal of aid?
You know what? Yes, there's definitely a clear indication that aid is a problem. We actually find that annually there is certain funding requirements to meet the global demand for malaria control and elimination. And we've struggled to actually achieve that amount. We're talking in the billions here. There's always a shortfall. And now suddenly we find that huge amount of aid that is supposed to go towards malaria control is no longer available as it used to be. So now we find that these countries affected need to find alternative ways, alternative means to get the money to either mobilize their resources, to purchase resources, to pay for people that have to actually do the work, the people on the ground that go and do the spraying, that go and are home-based care workers that go and meet the people, that are case management officers that have to go up and follow up each case. So there's already major impact. A lot of the funding goes towards control measures such as bed nets, where bed nets are purchased and made available in some of these countries. And without that money, these bed nets cannot be procured. The same thing with the drugs needed, same thing with the tests, the rapid diagnostic tests, to do these testing and to see if people have malaria. Without the money that allows the government, allows the people to procure these resources, it becomes a major challenge.
We're just going to take a small break. I'm speaking to Dr. Tanishka Kruger, Project Manager and Coordinator to the University of Pretoria Institute for Sustainable Malaria Control, and we are talking about malaria, commemorating malaria. It is the 25th of April, and it happens every year on this particular day.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel Rosabelle and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up. S3.
It takes a while before these arch rivals meet in the final. But when they do, everything stops. Nabi is confident to delight the Amakotsi fans.
If the fans love Kaiser Chiefs, automatically love Nabi.
While the back-to-back victor, Rivero, chases the third consecutive title.
Whenever it's time to go, we're going with the intention to be competitive, to try to be better than the opponent.
This is the Nedbank Cup final. Witness the Soweto Derby. Gold and Black battles it out with Black and White on Saturday, 10 May at 4:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Then on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
And I'm speaking to Dr. Tanishka Kruger, Project Manager and Coordinator to the University of Pretoria Institute for Sustainable Malaria Control. And we're talking about malaria. Doc, welcome back. Doc?
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. You're back.
Okay,
You're back.
great.
You're back.
Great
Now,
stuff.
if we look at, for instance, research, is there extensive research that's going into it? And where do we stand at present, especially here in South Africa?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question, because something that I did forget to mention is with this whole funding issue, a part of malaria control and elimination that is really being impacted on is research. Of course, we need funding to find out or to develop new tools and technologies and strategies to get rid of the disease. So yes, there's a lot of research happening globally, across Africa, and then of course in South Africa itself. So there's been remarkable breakthroughs, as we know. There's been improvement in diagnostic tools over the years, from promising up to promising malaria vaccine developments over the last 4 or 5 years now. Something that didn't just happen overnight, but this is years, and when I say years, I mean 20 to 30 years, if not more, of research going into developing these vaccines. So institutions like ours here at the University of Pretoria Institute for Sustainable Malaria Control and other academic and research organizations across South Africa and Africa are therefore pivotal in developing these new innovative strategies to combat the disease. So if we look at just some of the things happening here at Pretoria, for example, is we have this huge drug discovery focus within the Institute, where they and their collaborators across South Africa and across Africa itself are finding new or identifying new compounds that can be used in new and better drugs going forward. Probably one of the best known ones at this point in time coming from our labs is the occurrence of drug compounds used in other diseases like TB and cancer that have shown great activity against the gametocyte stage, or the sexual life cycle of the parasite, to help prevent mosquitoes from transmitting the disease. Some other research that we focus on is innovative vector control methods, where we find new ways to control the disease by stepping away from the traditional simply using of insecticides to maybe new repellents. And the reason for that being is the mosquitoes have started developing resistance against insecticides, which means we need to find new ways to control them and step away from the old insecticides we've been using. So what we try and do is we look at safer and more sustainable ways to try and control the vector mosquito. And then we also look at human impact. So see how we can make use of education and health promotion to actually educate communities about the disease, which is very important. It is almost the most important thing about malaria control these days, is to educate communities about what's happening, and to ensure they take their health into their own hands and therefore try and prevent getting the disease before, rather than getting the disease and needing treatment. So that's just some of the things we do, but we also look into leadership. Leadership is very important in the control programs, for example, to make sure that these people are skilled and ready to make important decisions based on data that they receive daily. So that is just a very, very short summary of what we do at the University of Pretoria Institute for Sustainable Malaria Control, and many of our collaborators across South Africa are doing similar and good work to try and get rid of this disease.
You did mention right at the beginning that poverty plays a very pivotal role, or it plays a role in, us being more prevalent to malaria. And then, of course, looking at certain countries such as Mozambique, Angola, Democratic Republic of Congo, these are just some of the countries that are highly, highly contagious. Coming to working as a collective, what can we do?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's another problem with malaria, is that it is a cross-border challenge. I didn't mention that. It is a cross-border challenge. So along with climate change, something else we need to take into account is it's a disease that impacts the region, and to get rid of it, we need to look across the region and not just individual countries. So these high risk areas, what we find is that the people, they travel from a high risk area to a low risk area. For example, when we look at Mozambique, and a lot of traffic moving into South Africa, that impacts on how we control the disease, how we target to eliminate the disease. And the reason for that being is many of these people come into the country with the parasite. They might not know that they're sick, they're asymptomatic. Our mosquitoes bite one of them, and they can start transferring malaria within within our country borders. So that impacts on not only, the people, but it impacts on how we approach malaria and malaria control in the region, because it means we have to focus on additional, resources, the use of additional resources, additional teams to look into following up any cases that might, when they start in a foreign country, to get that information to make sure that that is where they originated from, so it does not impact on our control program long term, and of course our healthcare facilities and our resources.
And then this one is just a quick one, where we often hear that quinine plays a very, very, pivotal role in terms of, making your skin a little bit more repellent to mosquitoes. Is this a fact or is it a myth? Because when you look at tonic water, for instance, when a lot of people that drink tonic water, we've often heard, no, drink your lots of tonic water when you go to mosquito-infested areas. Does this work?
Yeah, you know what, that is so funny. No, it's not going to help you to drink tonic water. Tonic water does contain quinine, which is used or was quite heavily used in, years ago for malaria control purposes. But the quinine in the drugs that was developed many years ago or used many years ago contains a high concentration of quinine. Tonic water, you need to drink, I don't know how many liters of tonic water to maybe even have a slight smidgen of a possibility of it wanting to, help prevent malaria in a person. So no, it's more a fallacy than anything else.
Dr. Tanishka, I just had to ask. So I think I've popped the bubble for quite a number of people out there who thought maybe drinking their tonic water or their beverages with tonic water would actually, be an assistance or a repellent of sorts. Thank you so much for making time, Dr. Tanishka Kruger, Project Manager, Coordinator to the University of Pretoria Institute for Sustainable Malaria Control, chatting to us. Have a fantastic afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
Bye-bye.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
On the news headlines, the families of the 3 missing police officers have arrived in Pretoria for the identification process following the retrieval of 3 bodies at the Hanops River in Centurion. The city of Cape Town says there is hope that the fire that started on Friday will be largely contained within 24 hours. Fire and Rescue Services spokesperson Jermaine Carroll says temperatures dropped significantly overnight with mist and drizzle. And 4 opposition lawmakers in Hong Kong were jailed for contravening the Chinese territory's national security law have been released from prison. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Side by side.
side. Good afternoon and welcome. This is a special side-by-side broadcast brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa la Bantwana, and the SABC Education. From April 24th to the 30th, we join the World Health Organization and countries around the globe in commemorating Immunization Week, known in Africa as African Vaccination Week. Since 2010, this important campaign has been a way for the Department of Health to raise awareness about life-changing saving powers of immunizations and to educate families on the vaccines children need to grow up strong, healthy, and protected from diseases. In some communities, mobile clinics are being made available to bring the vital services closer to those who need them the most. Today we'll be talking about the importance of immunizations, what they mean for our children's future, and how this year's African Vaccination Week and the Zero Dose campaign are helping ensure that no child is left behind. Today we're joined by Professor Hanneli Meyer, a full professor in the Division of Public Health Pharmacy and Management at the School of Pharmacy, Sefako Makgatho Health Sciences University. She specializes in vaccine safety and vaccination as an important pillar of the antimicrobial stewardship and national medicine use within the field of public health pharmacy. Good afternoon and welcome, Prof. Meyer, and thank you so much for joining us today to talk about immunization. Sometimes people talk about immunization and sometimes people talk about African Vaccination Week. Can you please explain to us what is African Vaccination Week?
Good afternoon, yes, and thank you for having me today. So African Vaccination Week, which is also known as African Immunization Week, so vaccination and immunization, we use these terms interchangeably. But each and every year, during this week from 24 April to 30 April, we commemorate African Vaccination Week. So during this week, we use this as an opportunity to discuss the critical role that vaccination plays in saving lives and to motivate parents and adults, everybody, to get their children vaccinated against vaccine-preventable diseases. Now, this, African Vaccination Week is overseen by the World Health Organization Regional Office for Africa, and all countries do their celebrate this week in their countries and try and create the awareness, raise awareness around the value that vaccines have in protecting children and adults, as well as women, especially pregnant women, against these vaccine-preventable diseases. So the goal is to increase people's knowledge of the benefit of vaccination and immunization, as well as encourage the use of vaccines to safeguard and enhance children's health and everyone's welfare, because we need healthy people, we need healthy communities. So the theme of this year's Immunization Week is immunization for all is humanly possible, and you will see the slogan, vaccinated communities, healthy communities. So the theme, emphasizes the feasibility, it's possible for us, and the importance of achieving universal immunization coverage. So it highlights that with collective efforts, every individual, each and every person, especially children, can receive essential vaccines, preventing numerous of these diseases and saving millions of lives.
And what is zero dose?
So zero dose refers to children who have not received any vaccine or immunization, not even a single dose, and especially the very first dose of what we call DTP. So that protects the child against diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis, or as we know, whooping cough. So these children are normally considered completely unvaccinated.
Prof. Meyer, what activities are planned for the upcoming African Vaccination Week?
So, like I mentioned, one of the focus areas will be to reach these zero-dose children. And in South Africa, we've already identified there are 15 districts in the country where most of these zero-dose children are. So, because these children are completely unprotected, like I explained, and exposed to the dangers of diseases like measles, polio, pneumonia, and more. And these diseases can be very disable. They can cause disability in children and even deaf, so we need to protect them. So the aim for this year then is to reach these communities where there are those children. So the Department of Health is going to have lots of activities and outreach programs to reach these children together with the communities. But then also across the country, there are catch-up campaigns to make sure that children are up to date with all their vaccines. So in addition to what the Department of Health is doing, we want to create the awareness among parents and caregivers so that they can be aware, and we encourage them to check their children's road to health card and then to bring their children to the health facilities, the clinics, if they have missed a vaccination or not being updated with their normal vaccinations. So also important, yes, if they, I know sometimes parents actually lose their child's road to health card, but they shouldn't be discouraged if they lost the card, and they still go to the nearest facility where the healthcare workers will then look at the age of the child, they will ask them some questions, and then determine and work out a plan for this child to catch up on all their vaccinations.
Well, Prof, you spoke about the community. How can the community help reduce zero-dose cases?
You know, I said the other day as well, we need to now all speak with one voice. So this means we all need to talk about immunizations, vaccinations, and the importance thereof. So wherever you go, each one of us in the community, when you visit your neighbors, your family, when you speak to someone on the phone, remind them about the importance of vaccination, ask them if their children are up to date, and then also, if they don't know, refer them to a facility. And I mean, vaccines also is not only for children, like I said, it's also for elderly people, for immunocompromised people, for pregnant people. So everybody needs to be aware of the importance of being vaccinated.
Now, let's talk about the importance of immunization. Why is it important for all children to be immunized?
Immunization protects children against dangerous diseases, like I said. For example, measles, which can kill a child or permanently affect their health. In addition, it's also to protect other children in the community. So we talk about herd immunity. So children who cannot be immunized because they have a weak immune system or they have cancer will then also be protected when they get exposed to a disease because of those around them who are vaccinated.
Can vaccines be dangerous to a child?
Vaccines, that's a very important question. They are very carefully tested before they are introduced to the public. So there are side effects, but they are not serious ones, like, for example, a fever or a swollen arm. There are some serious side effects, but they are very, very rare. It's very important for all caregivers and parents to keep an eye on the child, and if you see that there is a side effect, to immediately report that to the healthcare facility.
Professor Mayer, thank you so much for joining us today. What message do you want to leave with our listeners?
You know, no child should suffer or die from a disease that we can prevent. And remember, it's never too late to vaccinate. Vaccines save lives, so let's all work together, let's all talk together and make sure every child gets the protection that they need. Okay, so people should remember that mothers or caregivers, if you receive an SMS or a WhatsApp from Mum Connect, it will remind you that you must take your child for vaccination. So take the child's booklet, go to the facility where the nurse will then also indicate the vaccine that's been received and also indicate when the next vaccine is due.
Thank you for listening to Side by Side. Remember to check page 27 of your child's Road to Health booklet to ensure that your child has received all the immunizations required for their age. During the African Vaccination Week, please look out for the mobile clinics near you.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba! As they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Ashraf Gada on SAFM.
How it all started, because it's not just your father, right? There were people involved in putting together the very, very first group 65 years ago. So,
no, our father started the group in 1969. He got a dream that he has to go and recruit his cousins and his brothers to start his own group, so that because he had visions, he had dreams of how this music should be sung.
Homeless, homeless, with moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake.
You're listening to the National Pulse. You are listening to the Full Circle.
And coming up next, the impact of vaping to teenagers' mental health. This I found alarming. So, a survey conducted in 52 high schools across South Africa, 17.82% of the learners between grades 8 and 12 reported currently using vaping products, with 47% vaping within the first hour of waking, suggesting high nicotine addiction. In addition to this, 36.7% reported having tried vaping previously. That is your grade 8 and your grade 12 child exposed to this. What does it mean? What is it what's the point that we're missing? But we'll unpack this. So, packed in fun flavors and as seen as socially acceptable, less harmful than tobacco, vaping is rising at an alarming rate among South African teenagers, putting them at risk of addiction and harm to their developing brains and mental health. According to South African study, at least a quarter of South African grade 12 learners admit to vaping regularly, both as social activity and stress coping. And to help us unpack, Dr. Wisani Makomisani, psychiatrist, member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists, joins us. Good afternoon, Doc, and welcome to the show.
Afternoon, Bertha. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. This is crazy. These are mad numbers. Grade 8 and 12. What business do they have vaping?
It's actually very scary. Thank you so much for having us. The difficulty, and I think you mentioned it just now, it's the flavors. It is now presented as if it's a lollipop, if I'm to say that. It's like an adolescent's lollipop, and I think the problem started there. But if we go back a little bit, in the 60s when tobacco was first introduced, pregnant women were using it, doctors were, advertising it as it does not harm. But it's only now in the late 90s and the early 2000s where the research has actually come out to say tobacco and nicotine, is dangerous. It causes cancer. And I think we know enough what cigarettes do. Now, I don't know if that's what happened, but someone maybe went back to the drawing board to try and figure out how to get the next generation to still use tobacco, lack of a better way of saying it. But it is said it is difficult. We see more. I understand this is a study, but sometimes the ones that get researched on does not really fully reflect what is going on the streets. The numbers are probably higher than what we see on this study.
So I just want to understand, what was that all about? Having to introduce tobacco way back then. I know the aristocrats maybe used to use it as a class thing. Or was it just for recreational purposes?
I think now, if we are to come back now, I think our teenagers, our adolescents are going through a lot whether it's pressure from school, whether it's social media pressure. But generally, if you look at the current generation and maybe 2 generations back, the current teens and adolescents are going through a lot and more visible stress. You know, you are able to see what your friend is doing who stays, you know, in another country. But I think what happened is when they introduced the vapes or e-cigarettes and they put the fun colors, then it said this is not toxic, this is not cancer forming. It wasn't said directly, but it was insinuated, and I think that is where the fun came from. Because most people, including parents, actually believe that vapes are not dangerous. They believe it's, you know, you're not inhaling smoke, it's vapor, as in, you know, like water vapor, and everyone convinced themselves that, well, nothing is happening. But what is hidden behind the vape is that the actual amount of nicotine in one vape versus a cigarette is actually quite high. On average, with a cigarette, nicotine will be 1 to 2 milligrams in one cigarette. A vape, if we're to use a 5% one as an example, it will have a minimum of 50 milligrams of nicotine. So the amount of nicotine in that vape, as much as the teens will believe there is no smoke, is actually very high. And the question is, why are we unhappy with nicotine? It's because nicotine is a stimulant. If I'm to give you a list of stimulants, cocaine is a stimulant, crystal meth is a stimulant. There might be worse off maybe stimulants, but they're still stimulants, and they stimulate the brain. Now, the problem with an adolescent is that the brain is still maturing, the brain is still growing. Same as bodies that are growing. When you eat healthy, the body grows better. When you don't eat healthily, the body doesn't grow well. Same with the brain. When you expose it to stimulants, a very high dose of stimulants, then the growth of the brain does not grow the way it was supposed to grow. And we say that maturity tends to happen around the age of 26. So before the age of 26, the brain is still growing. And when it's exposed to what we will call insults to the brain, then certain things happen or rather do not happen. Why are our teenagers using it? Because of the stress. You know, what stimulants do is that they put your brain or your body in a fight or flight, respond to a stressor and run. If the stressor is a lion, great, you will be able to think fast and run away from the lion. But the problem is when the stressor is a test, ideally that is good stress, if I'm to call it that. This is where as a teenager they are supposed to learn how to maneuver through good stress and be able to deal with it. But now the stimulant comes in, and for that small period of time, they believe it made them feel better. But the problem is now you smoke every day, meaning your brain is stimulated every day, meaning overstimulated. So now the anxiety comes because you can't run away from a lion all the time. The pulse goes up, your breathlessness, blood is shunned to your muscles so your body can actually carry you. But that cannot happen forever. So the more blood goes to your muscles, as in diverted more to your muscles, and the pulse goes high, the heart beats faster, you breathing faster to survive the lion attack. If it happens every minute of every hour of every day, then that becomes a problem. And so your body goes into what we call toxic stress, and then the anxiety and the depression and everything else that comes after that becomes worse.
Yeah.
That is the biological side.
Well, I think let's open up the lines, 086 000 2032, or you can send us a voice note, WhatsApp 061 410 410 7. That's 061 410 410 7, and share your views. As a parent, as a guardian, do you truly understand what vaping devices look like and how accessible they are to children? Have you ever had a conversation with your teen about vaping? What did that sound like? And another slight fact, maybe it can be adjusted. Every 5 kilometers, you find a vaping store. So it's easily accessible. Now, coming back to you, Doc, in terms of the risks, or before we even go to the risks, I think let's hold the thought and let's hold that question as well. Let's just take a small break and we'll come back.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
What matters is still coming up. It's a massive football rivalry. It is one of the biggest football derbies in the world. Amakosi clashes with the Buccaneers at the Calabash. This is the Betway Premiership. Experience the Soweto Derby, Kaizer Chiefs versus Orlando Pirates on Saturday, 3 May at 2 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Then on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
And the lines are opened once again, 086 000 2032 or 61410 4107. And I'm speaking to Dr. Wisani Makomisani, psychiatrist and member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists. We're talking about vaping and how all of a sudden it's become the in thing. And we need to look at the risks. And I'm asking you as a parent, as a caregiver, do you truly understand what vaping devices look like? I suppose you've seen them somewhere. How accessible are they? Let me tell you, every corner you turn, you'll find them. And do you even know, does your child even know the risks of vaping? Have you had that conversation with your children or with whoever you're taking care of? And what did that conversation look like? And what was the outcome? It'll be interesting to hear from you. But Doc, welcome back. Just before we went for a commercial break, I wanted to find out the risks. You explained, of course, you get addicted to it, and also that you were talking about when you get so stressed to a level where it just becomes, your body becomes unbalanced, literally.
Yes.
What are some of the risks apart from the ones you've highlighted? Are there any other health risks that you can encounter?
Yes. Thank you for that. How the whole vape works is that there's a combustion of sorts that heats up the liquid, and the liquid burns into, I'm going to call it water vapor, but there are other chemicals there, but into vapor, and then that's what you would see. But there are what we call heavy metals. So, for example, if we compare with the normal cigarette would have what has been identified as cancer-forming properties. Those properties are not in the vape. But for us to identify the cancer-forming properties, this was after 40 or 60 years of people using tobacco for us to come back and say, oops, this is causing that. The same thing with the vape. There are chemicals there that, like heavy metals, for example, that are burned. We do not know now what would happen in 40 years. The saddest thing is that every teen or every person who's using a vape is actually being part of an experiment. They are putting themselves as an experiment for us to be able to see in 40 years' time how bad this causes. So there are chemicals that are there that are seen as harmless. But remember, when you introduce heat to chemicals, they change. And how those chemicals would interact with your lungs would cause problems. There's been a lot of children that have had lungs that collapse from vaping because locally their lungs will try and push toxins out. And that enters the lungs as toxins. So there will be the local problems in the lungs, which brings breathing problems. But if you're struggling to breathe oxygen, not enough oxygen is getting into the system, and it's a whole array of changes that will happen in your body. So as much as specific chemicals that were identified to be cancer-forming are not necessarily in there, we can say for sure that whatever is in there will not form cancer with time, because the body will try to heal itself and adjust, and sometimes in the body trying to heal itself from those toxins, cancer cells might form. And I think that is the difficulty, to say you don't have to be part of the experiment. You don't have to be the one who uses this now in 40 years to come back and say, oops, it actually does cause this. It is better than the cigarette in the sense that there are certain identified cancer-forming chemicals that are in the normal cigarette that are not in the vape. But what is in the vape has not been tested for us to say whether or not after smoking for 40 years you will develop cancer or you will develop certain chronic diseases or not. So that is the difficulty.
Let's just take one voice note and let's hear.
Good afternoon. This is Manuel from Western Cape. This thing of vaping, I don't believe it is caused by anxiety or it's a coping mechanism. It's completely an influence or fear of missing out of the kids. They just want to try everything. Just because everyone is doing it, they want to do it. I do have a daughter who does it, and I don't believe it's anxiety or stress because I don't see it as a stress coping mechanism. It's completely stupidity at best, because you're not working, you can't afford to buy vapes, but the little money that you get, the pocket money, you want to use it on vapes. So that's completely stupidity and ignorance.
I want to put my 2 cents worth of, and I think I'll put my foot in it. So maybe let me stay away from it, Doc. So we also have noticed just not vaping. They've got the hubbly bubbly. Is it the same? Does it have the same effect, or does it have the same risks?
Yes. Let me maybe try and assist the gentleman who called on the voice note.
Yes.
You know, it's always easy to say peer pressure makes you smoke for the first time. Something makes you go back for the second time, if that makes sense. So sometimes it's easy for us to say our kids are fine. It is just peer pressure. But my advice is we have nothing to lose in taking that child to a mental health care practitioner to see whether it is just peer pressure or they were actually self-medicating something. Because if they can get medication in the place of vape for them to feel better, that is a better, healthier way of dealing with whatever could be there. Remember, I know my child. I've been with my child for 16 years. Sometimes it's easy for me to miss that how they are is anxiety, how they are is depression, because as long as I've been with them, that's just who they are. Sometimes children struggle quietly. I'm not giving an excuse for children to use vape, but I'm saying if your child is using vape, it helps sometimes to seek professional help to say, is it just peer pressure? Or did the child feel a relief of something when they went back for the second time? I hope that will cover the gentleman.
I think you've really just handled it very, very well. And that brings our conversation to an end. And thank you for making time for us this afternoon, Dr. Wisani Makomisani, psychiatrist, member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists. Have yourself a great one. I just had to share this just before we go, that it was also pointed out in 2022 that South African e-cigarette survey, which found that 1 in 5, which is 19% of users with no previous smoking history, started smoking conventional cigarettes only after using e-cigarettes, while only 1 in 8, 13%, quit conventional smoking after taking up e-cigarettes. So that's for you to do the maths. But otherwise, from my team, my technical producer and my content producers, it's been amazing. And do stand by for Ashraf taking over from 3 onwards. But from the rest of the team, it's a very good afternoon. And Ondela is on standby with the news.
Thank you, Bertha. Top stories at 3. The families of 3 missing police officers to identify the bodies, and Hong Kong frees 4 pro-democracy lawmakers. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. The families of the 3 missing police officers have arrived in Pretoria for the identification process. Following the retrieval of 3 bodies at the Hinops River in Centurion, the bodies are 2 males and 1 female. The 3 officers went missing last week while travelling from Bloemfontein to Limpopo, where the 2 of the 3 had been deployed. The search for the second female body and the car they were travelling in is ongoing. National Police spokesperson Athlenda Mate is at the scene.
The families have arrived. They are now meeting with the National Commissioner of the SAPS, General Fani Masemola. They will then proceed to the mortuary to identify. At this stage, we cannot confirm whether it's our own that are lying in those mortuaries, but we will be relying on the families to give us that confirmation. But also, we had started with the identification process where we had collected the fingerprints of the bodies that we collected here, and then thereafter they would surely want to come to the scene. They will be transported here, and thereafter the National Commissioner will then brief and update the country.
Fatalities involving pedestrians has accounted for 47% of road deaths across the country over the Easter weekend. This was announced by Transport Minister Barbara Creasy during a media briefing on the Easter road statistics in Pretoria. According to the minister, a total of 167 fatalities were recorded this year as compared to 307 recorded in 2024. That's a reduction of 45.6%. However, despite this reduction, Creasy has expressed concern over the high amount of pedestrian fatalities.
Where we remain very concerned is the issue of fatalities involving pedestrians. And fatalities involving pedestrians is now the single highest cause of road accident deaths. 47% or almost half of all fatalities are now pedestrians. And this shocking reality indicates that our message to pedestrians is not reaching home.
The city of Cape Town says there is hope that the fire that started on Friday will be largely contained within 24 hours. Fire and Rescue Services spokesperson Jermaine Karelse says temperatures dropped significantly overnight with the mist and drizzle. Karelse says the fire lines at Northhoek, Clovelly and Boyers Drive have largely been contained, and that decisions will be made as to the extent of firefighting efforts within the next few hours. Over 200 ground crew and 5 helicopters were deployed at the peak of the blaze. The Umkhonto weSizwe Party says the Western Cape High Court's decision to suspend the VAT increase only addresses a symptom of a deeper crisis that includes aggressive austerity, restrictive monetary policies and a privatization agenda that the party says is being brutally imposed on South Africans. The MKP says President Cyril Ramaphosa is at the heart of this with what it terms the so-called Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. The MKP says it believes the plan is a brutal blueprint for mass impoverishment that it says is shamelessly supported by the DA. Sibahle Mota reports.
The MKP says